Hi there guys, and welcome to another video. Guys, thank you very much for joining me today. In today's video guys, I am going to be building a computer. Now, I don't want to give away too much of the excitement about the specialist nature of this computer that I'm going to be building, though to be fair, you will already have seen the title of the video, so that's probably given most of it away. Anyway, without further ado, let me hand over to me to talk a little bit about this computer build. Jacob? So, this computer that I'm going to be building is certainly not exactly your typical machine. I recently became aware of the X99 scene, which is building computers using an interesting mix of older and somewhat more modern technologies. Now, the keen-eyed among you will recognise X99 as being a somewhat older Intel chipset for Xeon server CPUs, and you'd be right. As it turns out, many of the X99 scene motherboards are actually Intel C612 chipset, but that's beside the point. It supports pretty much the same CPUs. Not to be confused, of course, with C418, the fantastic German music maker behind some of the music in Minecraft and more recently Cookie Clicker. Anyway, I digress. So these so-called X99 boards, they're generally made in China. You generally can find virtually no information about them in English. I was lucky enough to find a Ukrainian YouTuber, Mikonst, who has an excellent channel detailing a lot of these different products. I got this off Amazon. It was fulfilled by Amazon. The board didn't in fact have a name at all. So let's get started by translating what we see written on the board and in the box and see what we're dealing with. Today's translation is brought to you courtesy of Google Lens. Let's begin with the end of the box and see what's written there. X99 Dual, so that's a good name. What's written up here? Royal Demeanour, Top Luxury. Yes, I think that's a fantastic product name. So that's the box. We can be fairly happy that we definitely know what we're getting based upon that to start with. Right, now let's open up the box, shall we? So, fairly ordinary looking motherboard box, but not very glamorous. A SATA cable, of course. I mean, who wouldn't include a SATA cable with a motherboard in this day and age? Back panel plate, fairly ordinary there. And the motherboard with a little foam around the outside. So let us take this out of its bag. Again, a fairly ordinary looking bag. So, here it is. So you will immediately see there are two CPU sockets, so that's what makes this relatively special. It's got 8 DIMM slots. It supports dual channel memory, although the CPUs it supports actually would support quad channel memory, but the board doesn't. We have a couple of PCI Express x16 and a couple of x1s. We have 2 NVMe slots, so that's nice. A couple of CPU power connectors, motherboard connector. Now, I did do a bit of advanced research on this. The front panel connector, the usual kind of, power switch, reset switch, hard disk light, that kind of thing. No indications on the board at all what any of it is, no online documentation. Found a random forum with a random link to a Google Drive file that I had to request access to, that someone gave me access to, which was a photograph of it that someone had drawn on with the pins, so I'm just going to trust that. Other than that, USB 3 header, back panel is a little bit odd, plenty of USB 2 and 3, and PS2, lol. But I suppose that's not totally out of the question for a server board. Anyway, let's see what we can find in terms of writing. So what does the one sticker actually on the board say? It says, Jiahuayu technology. Good quality creates a good mood. That's good. Oh, and I note we also have the designation of the board written there as well. ZXDU99D4. So that's good then. So the board cost me a little over £100. I'm informed that if you're happy to buy from AliExpress, you can get it for significantly less than £100. So you're probably wondering, what CPUs am I going to be putting in here? Well, I have two of them, which I bought off eBay actually from Bargain Hardware. This will be the first time I open this one up. Grease cleanser, that's good. Bit of foam. This is actually very nicely packaged, let me just get this out of its packaging. Yes, that is very, very nice indeed. So, what I purchased for myself was a pair of, I hope this is, E5-2650 V4 Broadwell era Xeons. Let's take a look at the chip itself, handling it very carefully corner to corner. E5-2650 V4. So that's two 12-core CPUs. Can't go wrong with that. So before I get on with putting my CPUs into the motherboard and getting the fans on them, let me just give you a quick tour of the other componentry that I'm going to be using. So I have a Fractal Design case here that I'm going to be using, a reuse. I have some fans for the case, some DC fans. I have a couple of Noctua PWM fans for the CPUs. I have a GPU because Xeons don't have integrated graphics. I have some sticks of Vengeance LPX. Now, I should mention, this motherboard is quite good in that it supports registered ECC and unregistered, unbuffered, ordinary non-ECC memory as well. So I just went with some nice cheap Corsair for that. Yeah, we've got a EVGA Supernova power supply. I mean, it's all just stuff that I had kicking around. So yeah, let's get on with doing a bit of build. So I have boshed the memory in here first. It does look like there is going to be decent clearance around these heat sinks, so I don't think I necessarily have to, but I thought I would anyway, just to be on the safe side. Right, CPUs now. I am of course a massive player, and so now I have degreased the surfaces. I will be using Arctic Silver on the CPUs because it is the choice of the player. I'm the player. Flawless installation, absolute piss, as one expects of Noctua stuff, because it's just good, and they give you a twirly tool that's higher than the height of the heatsink, so you can actually get in there and do stuff up, which is really good when you've got some rather compact sockets there. Yes, love a Noctua. Though some might argue the wisdom of, after spending £30 on each of the CPUs, then spending basically the same amount again on a heatsink and fan, but hey, Noctua for the win. Okay, so I have popped the fans on the fronts of those heat sinks now and cabled them into the relevant connectors on the motherboard. As I mentioned, the memory is in play already, and I just popped a Samsung M2 on the memory slot. So yeah, we are basically good to start installing in the case at this time. I may have made a mistake here. Duracell, baby secure. Am I going to be able to get into it? Duracell, because you're worth it. Okay, well, the motherboard is in the case. I repeat, the motherboard is in the case. We have done our basic installation of the board, screwed it in. That's nice. And screwed the power supply in. So what we need to do next is to put some cables and stuff into play. Yeah, cable the power supply into the motherboard and front panel and all that gubbins. Let's do that next. Well, it's not what I'd describe as the easiest run ever. The CPU EPS cables for CPU 1 and CPU 2 plug in at the top, and the motherboard main power connector plugs in at the top, and I had to just run them down the main section of the case because the cables were kind of almost too short, and the holes at the top that you might put them through were too small, and the holes at the side were inaccessible because the motherboard is too big. So yeah, I just kind of made the best of the situation, but it's fine. Electrically, it's fine. It's just not very neat looking. But hey, the case does not have a window panel, so no problem. I forgot to mention the fans for the case have been successfully installed. So there is the rear Corsair DC fan there, the cable for which goes round the back and back up through and plugs in there. Kind of a weird design choice, I guess, to have both the case fan connectors at one side of the motherboard, given that that's the front of the motherboard and clearly you're going to have a rear case fan, but meh. And then the other case fan is in the front in there somewhere. And yes, that just runs through and is coiled there and also plugs in there, so they both go to the same place. And as you can see, I also installed the drive bays back in here as well. I do have a pair of 3 terabyte spinning birds that I am going to put in here, but I can't be able to do that right now because SATA cables and SATA power, and that can come some other time. I'm just going to do backups on that anyway. So yes, I think we're about ready to go-ish. I usually have a little bit of confidence in builds I'm doing, but this, I'm like, yeah, this is never going to work first time. So I've decided to stop at this point and plug it in and turn it on and see what happens before I add anything else in. So I've literally just dropped a VGA card in there and connected that up, and I'm going to turn it on now. For the first time on camera. I think any sensible video maker would have probably tried this first, but no, where's the fun in that? So let's switch on the power supply, wait for the bang. Okay, nothing terrible has happened yet, that's a good sign. Let's hit the power button and see if anything happens at all. Well, that was brief. Nope, there we go. Nope. Oh dear, this is not a good sign. It appears to come on ever so briefly. Oh no, it was just doing some stuff. No, that may be a good sign. Nothing on the screen though. We do have a code 67. Code 67, everyone. Well, this will be fun then, because there is absolutely no documentation on Earth for this motherboard, so good luck me, I'll go and try and figure out what's going on. So it's some time later, and I have, well, I'll show you what I've done. I've taken the second CPU out, because it does appear that with a second CPU in there, it just won't get past that code 79. I've tried one or other CPU in slot 1, and they always work in slot 1, but not in slot 2. So that's that done. While I had it all apart, trying various things, I did neaten quite significantly the cables that I had installed, so that's good. And yeah, I'm just putting it back together now with a single CPU to see if everything else works when plugged in, and it's just that. So let's see how we get on. Okay, so it's all put back together now. We have the CPU fans on. I went with a push-pull configuration since I had a spare fan left over. I've stuck in my NVMe card, a wireless card for dire emergencies only. Oh, that was a nice beep. That's probably a good sign. AE. Hopefully that means everything is working perfectly. Please install operating system. We'll see. A graphics card, basic operation, and I did plug in the SATA hard drives. I thought, why not finalise it all? So, yeah, there we go. All built. I will now actually go and plug it into a screen and keyboard and see whether or not we have a winning solution. Let's hope so after all this effort. Right, here we are for the second attempt. So let's turn that power supply on. This time we have our Wunderbaum Luftfrische Black Ice for luck. Hopefully that will be all the luck we need. So, power button, moment of truth. The lights are on. The Twizzler, the Q-code Twizzler, is making its way through some statuses. And we are past 79. And wow, there's something on the screen. Amazing. So that looks like we are in a good position. Let's go into the BIOS, shall we? This stolen BIOS. Not that I'm suggesting that that's what these boards all have, but going into the setup, there we go. American Megatrends, 32 gigs of RAM. That's a good sign. Looks fairly standard in here. Yeah, stuff. Well, anyway, I'm going to just go away and prepare a Windows to Go USB stick and boot it into Windows and see if everything is there that I expect to find there. Let's see. Well, it boots. It has more BIOS options than I have ever seen ever. It is seeing the two SATA disks, and it is seeing the onboard NVMe. It's not yet seeing the 4-port NVMe card, but I think the 1 trillion BIOS options about PCI Express are something that I can play with. It is seeing the RAM, and it is seeing one CPU with 12 cores and 24 threads. Bit of a disappointment that we could only get it working with one CPU. But anyway, we are where we are. So, VMware ESX does not seem to support the network controller on the board because it's a Realtek, filthy Realtek. Nobody likes Realtek. Realtek for the loss. Someone once told me that PCI gens and PCI bus widths and PCI slots in the Express world were all interchangeable and intercompatible. Every generation will work in every other generation, and every slot width will work in every other slot width, and so on and so forth. So I thought I would put it to the test with a baller experiment. So I whipped out my Dremel. Yes, and I took this rather fine Intel server NIC, of which I have two, and I modified it slightly, courtesy of the Dremel, using a ×1 card as a reference. So yeah, we have made this the same size as that now. So we will see if that actually works when put into the server. Yeah, that should be fun. Quality. Well, I firmly believe that to be bloody outrageous. There it is, the card in situ with a network cable plugged in, connected. Yes, you can saw the ×4 off a card and turn it into a ×1, and it still seems to work. That's silly. Obviously I won't be using all 4 of those gigabit ports because there's probably not enough bandwidth now, but I will be using one of them, and well, let's hope ESX will now recognise it because it's a quality Intel, albeit sawn off. If anyone ever tells you can't use a sawn off NIC, it's a good suggestion, but yeah, it seems that you can. Well, there you go. One built machine, albeit with one processor fewer than I was hoping. One ESXi installation. Yeah, one happy Jacob. Well, they do say the best Jacob is a happy Jacob. Good job, Jacob. So there you have it, viewers. A single CPU X99 enthusiast build. 'Tis a shame that we weren't able to get both CPUs working, but at least we did get our bifurcated 4-port NVMe card working and our sawn-off network card. So I'll call that a success, I think. Perhaps now that I'm more familiar with the X99 scene, I will in future consider buying another dual socket board and giving it another go and seeing how we get on. We'll see. Anyway guys, I hope you found the video interesting and informative, and guys, please do feel free to comment below. I'm especially interested if you know anything about the X99 enthusiast scene, or if you've ever built a dually processor machine outside of a proper server context, i.e. just an ordinary desktop board with dual sockets. I must admit before today I have had two. I did have an Athlon MP back in the day, and before that I did have a dual processor Pentium 3 723, so that's going back some, back when you didn't need Intel's blessing to make such a crazy board. Anyway guys, that's about all we've got time for. I do look forward to seeing you in the next video, but for now guys, there's very little more for me to say, except, well, goodbye.